Nerina Vale and Celesta Pryne were inseparable until one vanished and the other became the face of the search. As the town rallied to find Celesta, Nerina wept on camera, led search efforts, and even comforted detectives. But beneath her grief lay a chilling secret. She already knew where Celesta was buried because she had put her there. Nerina Vale and Celesta Pryne were the kind of best friends everyone envied. From the outside, their friendship seemed unbreakable, the type that withstood every test life threw at them. Nerina was the dominant force between them, fearless, magnetic, and dangerously persuasive. She had a way of making people bend to her will, her words like silk that wrapped around their thoughts until they believed whatever she wanted them to. Celesta, on the other hand, was quieter, more reserved, the perfect contrast to Nerina's bold personality. She admired Nerina, almost worshipped her, following her lead in all things. But admiration can turn to fear, and trust can be shattered in an instant. In the months leading up to Celesta's disappearance, a shift had taken place between them. It was subtle at first. Unspoken tension, moments of hesitation in Celesta's voice, the way she no longer seemed completely at ease around her best friend. Their once effortless bond now felt strained, as if an invisible thread was being pulled, too tightly, threatening to snap. Nerina noticed. She noticed everything. It started with small things. Celesta canceling plans at the last minute, excuses that didn't quite make sense. The way she flinched when Nerina touched her arm as if she no longer trusted her. Nerina brushed it off at first, convinced it was nothing more than stress or some temporary phase that would pass. But then came the biggest betrayal of all. Celesta started pulling away completely. She wasn't just avoiding Nerina. She was shutting her out. Nerina wouldn't allow it. One night, Celesta made a mistake. She confided in someone who wasn't Nerina. A conversation overheard in whispers, a secret Nerina was never meant to know. Celesta had discovered something dangerous, and she was afraid. From that moment on, Nerina knew she had to act. A few days before Celesta vanished, the two were seen together, just like old times. They laughed in public, shared inside jokes, and put on a performance convincing enough that no one suspected anything was wrong. But behind closed doors, the truth was much darker. Celesta had been backed into a corner, trapped in a situation she couldn't escape from. She was going to leave town. That much was certain. She was done with Nerina, done with the toxic hold she had over her life. But she never got the chance. The day Celesta disappeared, it was as if she had simply walked out of existence. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her apartment was undisturbed, and none of her friends had heard from her. A few worried messages turned into dozens. People started to talk. Maybe she just needed time alone. Maybe she'd come back when she was ready. But days passed, and the silence became unbearable. Nerina played the part of the concerned best friend perfectly. She told everyone how worried she was, how strange it was for Celesta to leave without saying a word. She showed up at the police station to file a missing person report, her voice breaking at all the right moments. She even organized search efforts, plastering Celesta's face on flyers and knocking on doors, asking if anyone had seen her. Her performance was flawless. No one doubted her grief. But beneath the surface, she wasn't worried. She wasn't scared. She already knew the truth. Celesta Pryne was never coming back. The search for Celesta Pryne gained momentum as days turned into weeks. Friends, family, and strangers combed through her last known locations, hoping to find a clue, any sign that she was still out there. Flyers covered street corners, pinned to coffee shop bulletin boards, taped to lamp posts. Her smiling face stared back at the town, her eyes frozen in time, while the people who loved her held onto fading hope. Then, a breakthrough. A jogger reported an abandoned car parked near a hiking trail just outside of town. It had been there for days, collecting dust and suspicion. When officers arrived, they confirmed what the town feared. It belonged to Celesta. The vehicle was locked, the keys missing, but inside everything was left untouched. Her purse sat on the passenger seat, her phone missing, but a nearly full water bottle rested in the cup holder. The sight was eerie, as if she had stepped away for just a moment and never returned. Search teams expanded their efforts to the surrounding woods. Volunteers and police officers moved in lines, calling her name, their voices swallowed by the dense trees. Hours passed, then a full day. Nothing. But a seasoned detective noticed something others had overlooked. A section of earth, slightly uneven, the soil appearing looser than the rest. It was nothing obvious, just the kind of detail that trained eyes would catch. He called over the others. The first shovel hit the dirt, and it gave way too easily. The soil was fresh, disturbed recently. A few more scoops, and the scent hit them first, a smell that sent a chill through even the most hardened officers. They kept digging, and within minutes, they found it. A human foot, pale and motionless, wrapped in cloth. The excavation continued, slow and careful, until the full truth was unearthed. Celesta's body lay beneath the gnarled roots of an old willow tree, her arms folded over her chest as if placed there deliberately. Her face was covered, but her identity was undeniable. The town's missing girl had been here all along, just beneath the surface, waiting to be found. Forensics arrived quickly, sealing off the area as crime scene tape stretched between tree trunks. Flashing lights painted the darkening woods in blue and red while officers murmured among themselves, already questioning who could have done this. The body showed signs of a struggle. Bruises in varying shades marked her arms and neck, indicating a violent end. Someone had fought to silence her, to make sure she never spoke again. Word spread fast. Within hours, the entire town knew. The missing person case had turned into a homicide investigation. The posters that once carried hope now became reminders of something far more chilling. People whispered theories, trying to piece together what could have happened. Some believed it was a random attack, a stranger lurking in the woods. Others weren't so sure. When a murder happens, the first place to look is always close to home. One name came up more than others: Nerina Vale. She was the last person to see Celesta, the best friend who had cried the loudest when she went missing. But as the days stretched on, her sorrow seemed off. Too polished, too rehearsed. Some found it odd that she was so involved in the search, placing herself at the center of the investigation rather than retreating into grief. People started to talk. As investigators combed through Celesta's life, Nerina's name surfaced again and again. Their friendship had been tight-knit, but not perfect. There were arguments, moments of distance, lingering tension that those close to them had noticed. And then there was the simple truth. Who else would have known Celesta's movements better than the person who had always been by her side? The police had questions, and Nerina was about to answer them. Nerina Vale didn't run. She didn't hide. She didn't act like someone with something to fear. Instead, she positioned herself exactly where she wanted to be, at the center of the investigation, while others recoiled in shock and grief after. Celesta's body was discovered. Nerina remained composed, slipping seamlessly into the role of the devastated best friend. She spoke to reporters, her voice thick with emotion as she pleaded for justice. She stood beside officers during search efforts, handing out water bottles and comforting those who had known Celesta. She lingered near detectives, eager to hear their theories, sometimes offering her own. To those watching from the outside, it looked like she was just a heartbroken girl desperate for answers, but some saw it differently. Some noticed the way her grief seemed to vanish when she thought no one was looking, how the tremble in her voice was perfectly timed, her tears appearing only when an audience was present. She was too composed, too controlled. It was as if she enjoyed the attention, as if she fed off the tragedy rather than suffered from it. Then there was the way she interacted with the investigators. She flirted subtly at first, compliments disguised as casual remarks, fleeting touches, laughter that lingered a second too long. It wasn't the behavior of someone weighed down by loss. It was something else entirely. A game, a performance, a challenge. She wanted to know what they knew. Every conversation was an opportunity to test the waters, to gauge how close they were to discovering the truth. She charmed them, manipulated them, weaving her way into their good graces so seamlessly that they almost forgot why they were there in the first place. Almost. Detectives couldn't ignore the way she placed herself at the heart of everything. Most people who lose a loved one to violence shrink away from the investigation, overwhelmed by grief. Nerina did the opposite. She inserted herself into every aspect of it, almost as if she needed to control the narrative. And then there were the inconsistencies. Nerina claimed she had last seen Celesta a full day before she went missing, but phone records told a different story. The two had exchanged messages late into the night, hours after Nerina insisted she had gone to bed. Witnesses recalled seeing them together the night Celesta disappeared, their conversation heated, their body language tense. A search of Celesta's apartment revealed more questions. A packed bag sat near the door as if she had been planning to leave in a hurry. Her journal contained scattered entries detailing a growing fear, cryptic mentions of a decision she had made and its potential consequences. Something had changed between them in the days leading up to her disappearance, something that had made Celesta afraid. Nerina, of course, had explanations for everything. She had been worried about Celesta's well-being, had reached out multiple times to check on her. She hadn't mentioned it before because she hadn't thought it was relevant. The packed bag? Celesta had always been impulsive. Maybe she had been planning a trip, but something stopped her. None of it, according to Nerina, meant anything. But the investigators weren't convinced. There was a sense that they were circling, closer, that the facade was beginning to crack. Nerina could feel it. But rather than retreat, she pushed forward, confident that she could outmaneuver them. She wasn't just trying to fool them. She was enjoying it. Investigators watched Nerina Vale closely, studying her movements, her reactions, the way she carried herself in the wake of Celesta Pryne's murder. She had done everything she could to insert herself into the case, to weave herself into the investigation like she belonged there, but no matter how well she played the part, something was off. It was in the small details, the moments she didn't think anyone was watching. Detectives had seen her kind before. People who believed they were smarter than everyone else, who thought they could manipulate the system, twist the truth, and walk away untouched. They knew the mask she wore was slipping, but they needed more. A mistake, a crack in the performance, something irrefutable. They started looking deeper. They combed through phone records, social media interactions, surveillance footage, anything that could paint a clearer picture of what had really happened the night Celesta disappeared. What they found changed everything. Celesta had received a series of phone calls in the hours before she vanished, all from one person. Nerina. Records showed that Nerina had contacted her multiple times, each call lasting only a few seconds, as if she were trying to get Celesta's attention without leaving a clear trail. But the final call, the one that mattered most, lasted nearly 10 minutes. It came just before midnight, right before Celesta's phone went silent forever. Investigators pulled more records, searching for gaps in Nerina's alibi. She had claimed she was home that night, but traffic cameras told a different story. Her car had been spotted near the hiking trail where Celesta's body was later found. The timestamp was damning. It placed her at the scene within an hour of Celesta's last known contact. Then there was the message. A single text recovered from Celesta's partially deleted phone data. It was short, chilling in its simplicity. "You shouldn't have done this to me. You know what happens to people who betray me. It wasn't proof on its own, but it was enough to push investigators harder. They retraced Celesta's final hours, interviewing friends and acquaintances, gathering fragments of information that, on their own, seemed meaningless, but together formed a sinister picture. Celesta had been planning to leave town. She had told at least 2 people she was done with Nerina, that she had discovered something that made her afraid. But she never got the chance to escape. Then came the physical evidence. A forensic team re-examined Nerina's car, focusing on the tires, the undercarriage, and any hidden details she might have overlooked. That's when they found it. Traces of disturbed soil matching the exact composition of the ground where Celesta had been buried. A deeper search of Nerina's belongings uncovered something even worse. A piece of fabric tucked away in a forgotten corner of her trunk, stained with what appeared to be blood. It was sent for testing immediately. Investigators knew they were close. They had spent weeks playing along with Nerina's act, allowing her to believe she was in control. But now, they had what they needed. She had slipped. Her lies were unraveling, and for the first time, Nerina Vale wasn't the one leading the game. The knock at Nerina Vale's door came early in the morning. She had been expecting it. Or maybe she had convinced herself she was untouchable, that she had covered every loose end, manipulated every detail to her advantage. She had played the role of the grieving best friend so well that for a while it seemed like she had everyone fooled. But the weight of the truth had been pressing in on her, tightening like a noose she couldn't escape. When she opened the door, she was met with the cold, impassive faces of the detectives who had been circling her for weeks. Their presence was different this time. Before, she had been able to charm them, toy with them, make them doubt their own instincts. But now, there was no hesitation. They knew, and so did she. The evidence spoke louder than any of her carefully crafted lies. The phone records, the deleted text message, the surveillance footage placing her near the crime scene, the soil samples. From her car and the blood-stained fabric, it all pointed to her. Every thread investigators pulled had led back to Nerina, each new discovery tightening the case against her until there was nowhere left to hide. She was placed in handcuffs, and as they clicked shut around her wrists, she let out a slow breath. Not in panic, not in anger, but something closer to amusement, as if she had always known it would end this way. The news spread through town like wildfire. Nerina Vale, the girl who had stood in front of cameras, wept for her best friend, pleaded for justice, and charmed investigators, had been arrested for murder. Some people were shocked. Others admitted they had always suspected her. There had been something too perfect about the way she inserted herself into the investigation, too controlled in the way she handled grief. It had felt rehearsed, because it was. Her trial became the most talked-about event in the region. Every detail of her and Celesta's friendship was dissected, their final interactions scrutinized. Prosecutors painted Nerina as a master manipulator, someone who had killed out of rage, jealousy, or fear of being exposed. They described how she had lured Celesta out that night, how an argument had escalated into violence, how she had driven to the woods and buried her with calculated precision, thinking she had erased all traces of the crime. But the most chilling part was her behavior afterward. The way she had inserted herself into the investigation, flirted with detectives, played the role of a distraught friend, all while knowing exactly what had happened. It wasn't just murder. It was a performance. Nerina never confessed. She sat through the trial with an eerie calmness, watching as evidence after evidence stacked against her. She listened to former friends take the stand, to detectives recount her inconsistencies, to forensic experts detail the damning discoveries. Yet, she never broke character. Even when the guilty verdict was announced, she remained composed. No tears, no outburst, just a small, knowing smile. As if she had been waiting for this moment all along. As she was led away in shackles, she turned her head slightly, locking eyes with one of the detectives who had been at the forefront of her case. For weeks, she had played with them, tested. Their resolve danced around their suspicions. But in the end, they had won. And yet, in that final moment, it felt like Nerina had won something too. Because she wasn't afraid. She never had been.